What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is the LazyDaze Channel and we're back at it again with some more history reaction for you guys today, and we're doing some more World War II content for you, and this is the White Death Finnish Sniper Simo by Sabaton History. It was being requested quite a while ago. We have been meaning to get to it, so we do apologise it's taken so long, but we are definitely looking forward to finding out some more about this guy in general and some of his feats. If you haven't already, please head over to
Sabaton's
History's channel. A link will be in the description box down below. If you're enjoying our content, like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But we're just going to jump straight into this one.
Let's do this.
I'm Indy Nidell.
And I'm Joachim from Sabaton.
And this is Sabaton History. The most prolific sniper in any war was a Finnish soldier fighting in Finland's winter war against the Soviet Union.
And the man is Simo Häyhä, and the Russians knew him as the White Death.
Simo Häyhä was born December 17, 1905, in the small Finnish municipality of Rautjärvi, near the Russian border. His peers described him as a friendly, mild-mannered, introverted man who kept to himself and to his daily work as a farmhand. Rautjärvi is surrounded by the tough Finnish wilderness, so although Simo grew up in quiet times away from city life, his own life was far from easy. The harsh, unforgiving winters forced the people of southeast Finland to come to terms with the wilderness around them. Early on, Simo excelled as a naturally gifted hunter, spending most of his youth outside in the forest, shooting small game with an old bolt-action rifle. By the age of 20, he had undergone his mandatory military service and had been promoted to corporal. He took part in several skiing and shooting competitions. He was a real biathlete, and he was especially renowned for his skills with the rifle. Like most Finnish men, he had joined the national militia after his compulsory service. This was the suojeluskunta, a service for young men that dated back to Finland's declaration of independence in 1917 and the Civil War the following year. The service trained men like Häyhä to be prepared for those times when Finland most needed them. Such times came November 30th, 1939, as the Soviet Union declared war on Finland. A man from a simple upbringing like Simo Häyhä cared little for world politics, nor much about the ambitions of dictators of the time like Joseph Stalin. But like many Finns, he was fiercely independent and valued his and his country's liberty above pretty much all else. That liberty would be lost if the Finnish people did not stand up to defend it, regardless of the size of the enemy. So as the call to arms came, Häyhä, like many of his countrymen, answered.
Almost night, a crimson horizon, painting thousand legs red.
I like the music.
Army approaching the east, a hunter is switching his prey.
He joined the 34th Infantry Regiment in the Kola region north of Lake Ladoga. The Soviet 8th Army aimed for a quick breakthrough across the Kolanjoki River, but they were utterly unprepared to fight in such a region. Heavily wooded, with barely any infrastructure at the best of times, the Soviets tried to advance now in one of the worst winters in modern history, with snow up to 2 meters deep and temperatures down to -30. Häyhä was given a Finnish Mosin Nagant M28-30, which had been in production since 1928. A bit shorter and a bit heavier than the Russian-manufactured rifles, but with the typical Mosin Nagant reliability and accuracy, the M28 was an excellent sniper rifle. Nicknamed the Pistikorva, pointy ear, for the large ears on the front sight. It would perform well in the hands of an experienced marksman like Simo Häyhä. The Finns could not hope to win against the might of the Soviet army in a straight-up pitched battle. The Soviets simply had more of everything: tanks, men, artillery. Instead, the Finnish art of war relied heavily on hit-and-run tactics, with men on skis who knew the terrain, outflanking, infiltrating, and ambushing the sluggish Soviet invaders, many of whom had no skis or did not know how to ski, ruining mobility. While the Finns were naturally familiar with the winter conditions, the Soviet forces were woefully not. Many came from the military district of Leningrad and had not even been supplied for a long, drawn-out conflict. The winters in Finland are harsh, and unforgiving. And even when the sun is out during the short days, it is still bitterly cold. Häyhä wrapped himself in a thick and heavy snowsuit, insulating himself as much as possible from the snow and the cold winds. And he wore fur mittens and a sniper mask. The white color of his clothing blended in perfectly with the winter environment and the snow-covered forests of Kola.
Smart.
He preferred to work alone, being accustomed to stalking the deep forests on his own, and he knew to rely on his instincts. Patience was vital, as was leaving as little trace of his passage as possible. A hunter had to be cunning and precise in his actions. Carrying only a day's worth of food and around 50 or 60 rounds with him, Häyhä relied on his knowledge of the wilderness to find a good spot from which he could establish his sniper's nest. Once he found his position, he would build a little snow fort around himself to blend in with the environment. He placed his rifle on a snowbank that both stabilized his aim and prevented any snow from being thrown up by the recoil, and waited for the enemy to march into his killing field. When Soviet soldiers, struggling and freezing in the snow, would cross his path, Häyhä put a handful of snow in his mouth to hide his breath. Then he pulled the trigger.
All alone, a man with his gun.
This guy was dangerous.
Yeah.
Trace you down, you cannot hide. Once he is onto your trail.
It is said that during his training in the army, he was able to hit a target 150 meters away up to 16 times a minute. So now, the marching routes were full of dead Soviet soldiers who fell prey to the hidden marksman without ever knowing what had hit them.
So, I don't know if he's going to tell you or not,
Yeah.
but he never used a scope. It was all, every single shot he made was iron sight.
Iron sight.
Everything was iron sight.
Crazy.
Soviet positions were soon discovered, deserted of the living, but packed with bodies, frozen in their last positions before being shot and killed. Sometimes they were found still standing up, and in the sub-zero temperatures, even a minor wound was often fatal, as the weakened body would have a harder time surviving the elements. And Häyhä is believed to have not missed his target very often. In his short time at the front, his kill tally would rise to unprecedented levels. Hundreds fell to his rifle. So many, in fact, that his superiors did not believe the stories at first. Apparently, just before Christmas, he killed 25 soldiers in just one day. While many Finnish and Soviet snipers used modern sniping rifles outfitted with telescopic lenses, Häyhä relied on the old-fashioned iron sights. Not only did he feel that this gave him a better picture of his target, but more importantly, it would allow him to keep his head down lower, and in turn, lower his whole profile, making him harder to spot. And lenses could reflect the light and reveal position, as was the case with many Soviet marksmen who were sent out to counter-snipe him and instead met their fate to his outdated rifle. But Häyhä was also trained with the 9mm Suomi submachine gun, and depending on the fighting at hand, he also carried hand grenades and a traditional puukko army knife as a last resort. As a sniper, acting often alone beyond the front lines, Häyhä had to be careful and often forfeited obvious targets if they would endanger his position. The Soviets began beefing up their own counter-sniping activity, especially after his kill tally gained him both fame and infamy. If they suspected him of being somewhere, they would order artillery strikes in his general direction in the hope of finally neutralizing him.
He was that much of a threat to the army that if they heard he was in one area, they would just bomb it. Bomb it. I don't care. I want this rat dead. Bomb it. Blow it up.
Literally, I want this rat dead. Bomb it. Just bomb it. That's insane.
I just love the fact that he was chewing snow.
Yeah,
that's one of the best things that
smart.
I've heard. Is that he was
So
chewing snow
smart.
just to stop his breath getting shown.
I can't believe it.
There's even the story that a Soviet commander asked to be sent a famous Soviet sniper to eliminate Häyhä. After that sniper had killed several Finnish soldiers and officers, he waited for Simo to react and eventually show himself. Waited, and as the sun went down, he decided to call it a day and was about to get up. That was when Simo Häyhä shot him right through the head. Another story was that Soviet soldiers began carrying large iron shields into the field to help guard them from sniper fire. The Finnish snipers like Häyhä were accurate enough that they simply shot them in the kneecaps. such stories began to
Wow.
circulate more and more, as Simo Häyhä
Deadly.
became famous to friends and foe alike. The Finnish propaganda portrayed him as a symbol that embodied the struggle of little defiant Finland, while the Soviet propaganda called him Pilejä Smrt, White Death. The legend of White Death spoke of a ghost-like figure that was both everywhere and nowhere, creeping tirelessly through the woods. It freaked the Soviet soldiers out,
Yeah?
and it boosted Finnish morale.
Damn straight.
February 17th, 1940, 80 days after the invasion, Simo Häyhä was officially proclaimed a hero of Finland by the Finnish government, and with hundreds of kills to his name already then, was awarded the Kola Cross. He was promoted and gifted a custom-made Sako M2830 rifle. But despite the legends, Simo Häyhä was not invincible and was not a ghost. He was a man, just like any other Finn, manning the defenses. In early March 1940, as the winter receded, it became clear that though Finland had astonished the world by holding off the mighty Red Army, they could not hold out forever. The Soviets were learning, were gathering more firepower and more competent leaders and tactics. And as the winter ended, so too did the Finnish advantage with the weather. No matter how valiantly they resisted, the numbers would eventually crush them. On March 6th, Häyhä was caught up in the middle of a renewed Soviet offensive against Kola. Fighting with the regular troops, Häyhä had again killed at least a dozen that day. An exploding bullet hit him in the jaw and ripped his lower face apart. Saved by his comrades, he was dragged out of the fighting and into hospital. He spent several days in a coma, and when he awoke on March 13th, peace had been signed. The war was over for both him and his country. For around 25,000 square miles of territory, the Soviets had paid a high price. Most estimates of the Soviet dead are around 130,000, but it may actually have been as high as 250,000 dead men.
Wow.
Finland had David and Goliath to the USSR on a scale no one imagined possible. Finnish independence had been saved.
Imagine that
Simo
warfare. All
Häyhä
warfare is
would
scary.
bear the wounds to his face for the rest of his life, but otherwise fully recovered. He could not go back to his own home, though, which was now on the other side of the Soviet border. But he found a new home and lived a long, peaceful life until his death in 2002. In later interviews, Häyhä repeatedly emphasized that during his service in the Winter War, he simply did what he was told. But he was the best at it. In not even 100 days, his official score was 505 kills, making him the most successful sniper in history. That's just the official tally. Unofficially, it was higher. Now, of course, those numbers will always be debatable, such is the nature of war. But the legend of White Death is very much alive today, and not just in Finland. When asked what it was that made him such a great sniper, Häyhä simply answered, practice.
I thought I'd do YouTube channel.
So why, of all the military figures available throughout the history of humanity, did you pick Simo to write about?
The story of Simo is one of the most inspiring in military history, at least for me. Personal opinion, of course, but that song and that story is kind of important for Sabaton History, because without that song, maybe we wouldn't even have the album Heroes that came later.
Okay, but it wasn't, his song isn't on Hero.
No, that's on Coat of Arms. That was the first time we asked our fans, that's you guys, about sending in, basically giving us ideas for songs.
Okay, but you guys still do that?
Yes,
But this was the
absolutely.
beginning.
That was the first time. We got a lot, lots and lots. Pat's mailbox was, totally full. That was one of the stories that really, only by reading kind of the name makes you want to find out.
Now, so if they're sending in, several thousand suggestions, you obviously can't read whole biographies of...
I'm assuming it's just these guys talking about it. after this, so I don't think we'll watch that. I think we've got the main story. Obviously, if we have missed anything, let us know in the comments box and we'll come jump back to the next last 3 minutes. I really enjoyed that and finding out about the Finnish Sniper. Obviously, you knew a bit about him. I'm completely shocked. That's absolutely surprised me. What a man, what
Geezer
a
had
legend.
skill.
Yeah, man.
Geezer had skill.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing how just one person can really affect and change morale for people and really put like a fear into
in the
a
Soviets.
whole
So
army.
it gives fear to the Soviets and it boosts the morale of the Finnish army as well.
Crazy.
To do both
It is
is
crazy.
absolutely insane. I really enjoyed that. If you guys enjoyed our reaction to it, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But we will catch you in the next video.
See you in a bit.